Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year, the time when we start to hear little details, little drips of information with regards to the upcoming Assassin's Creed game for that year. It's starting now. We're getting an actual report on how the Assassin's Creed Infinity launcher is going to work. And while it's interesting and it's novel and different, there are some concerning things because the entire thing seems to be built up almost entirely around selling you stuff. There are some red flags. I'll get to it. Today's report comes from the one and only all-star Ubisoft reporter, Tom Henderson, the man, the myth, the legend. This guy has done a ton of reporting on Ubisoft, whether you're talking about Assassin's Creed Mirage, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, Star Wars Outlaws, AC Infinity, AC Red. All of these games have received a lot of reporting from him, and he's never really been wrong that I can think of. Like, I can't think of a single instance where any of his reporting has ended up being untrue or falsified. So that's kind of cool. The point is, this guy knows what he's talking about. And if he's reporting on something like the Assassin's Creed Infinity live service hub, he probably knows what he's talking about. And he's certainly not just making this stuff up. So as with all leaks or rumors or reporting on something that hasn't been revealed to the public, you should take it with a grain of salt. But this is not a guy that tends to warrant much salt. As previously reported, Assassin's Creed Infinity is going to be the core hub of the franchise for games like AC Red, Hexe, and Invictus. It's where they're all going to be launched on. And some people are confused as to what exactly this means, and he's going to get into it here in a second. But basically think of how Fortnite or Call of Duty HQ work currently, where they are a central hub or app, and they have a UI or some sort of live component where the player can walk around in a centralized hub. But from that hub, whether it's a menu or whatever else, you can then launch into different experiences or different game modes. With COD, this might be launching into zombies versus Warzone versus multiplayer versus the campaign. Or with Fortnite, it could be Lego Fortnite, the build mode, the race mode, the no build mode, etc., etc. It's not a super novel concept, but the basic idea of that is that then you have a centralized app that you can get players accustomed to using day in, day out, or for months and months, years and years. And from there, you can sell them experiences or cosmetics that could even spill over across multiple different experiences. So for example, in Fortnite, you buy a skin that you use in the no build battle royale mode, but you can then use that same skin in the build mode or in the creative mode or any of the others that you want to use it in. In some ways, it's meant to give players more bang for their buck when it comes to cosmetics because they can use them across multiple games or experiences. But to be fair, on the other hand, it's also just a way to try and get you all the more committed and synced into an ecosystem, which is what these things are about. Call of Duty wants to have their own ecosystem, Fortnite has their own ecosystem, and Ubisoft wants to have their own Assassin's Creed ecosystem where all of the games are housed. Now, what's interesting is that they actually got demo footage provided to them under the condition that the footage doesn't go public. And to be fair, this is pretty normal. If a leaker or a developer wants to leak information or footage of a certain game or feature set, they might do that with a reporter they trust, so long as it's not made public, because there's all sorts of watermarks, employee IDs, things like that scrawled all over the screen. So it's pretty normal for them not to release this type of footage if they do see it. And in this footage, it shows the user going from the Infinity Hub to Assassin's Creed Red within just a few seconds, picking up right where they left off rather than having to boot the games up individually after falling back to the hub, which already is a massive improvement over how, say, Call of Duty HQ works, where depending on which experience or game you want to launch into, it might cause one app to fully close and another one to fully open, versus what like Fortnite does, where it's just opening a different mode. You tap this, you're in no build, you tap that, you're in build mode, you tap this, it's in creative. It's just super seamless and fluid. It seems that they're pushing for more of a fluid Fortnite experience. Man, I'm not used to talking about Fortnite this much. I'm getting lightheaded. Is this normal? Is this normal for Fortnite discussions? I've told the story before on my live streams, which you should definitely subscribe to, but like one time I was going over to my parents' house where my little brother still lives, and I was going to try to be like a really good big brother and bring my like gaming laptop. And I said, hey, we can play Fortnite, because he loves Fortnite. He takes it very seriously, which you would expect, being like 13 at the time, roughly. And so I was like, hey, buddy, look, I brought my laptop. I'm ready to play some Fortnite. You want to just set up and play some? You can play on the PS4 and I'll play on my gaming laptop. And he said, well, we could. do you have any not noob skins? It's like, I don't think so. I don't really play this much. I just have the default skins. He's like, yeah, well, if you don't have any other skins, my friends will make fun of you. So you should probably get some other skins. I was like, oh my God, I'm being bullied by a 13-year-old for not having different skins or a non-noob skin to play with in the game. It was pretty majestic and wonderful. So I think that explains the culture with skins in Fortnite, where they've convinced preteens and teenagers that if you don't pay for skins, you're not cool. And I am a prime example of a non-cool Fortnite player, apparently. Now, it's no surprise to anybody that the main focus of Assassin's Creed Infinity is to center everything around this live service offering. Live service is kind of a nothing term nowadays. It doesn't really mean anything because they use it for so many games all at once. It's like these executives think that it's like a selling point for players, but it usually isn't, because often all live service games are games meant to be alive for multiple years, where they're going to sell you multiple cosmetics or battle passes, season passes, expansions, what have you, in an effort to increase the overall revenue they make from this one game. So instead of just selling it to you for 60, 70 bucks, and that's all the money they make from it, they sell it to you for 60, 70 bucks, and then you play it for 2-3 years, you buy a bunch of expansions at 20 bucks a pop, some cosmetics, and before you know it, you've spent a total of $200 on that game, whereas before they would have only made 70 on it. Business-wise, it makes sense, and you could say, well, what's the problem? If players are getting a game that they play more, isn't that a win for players? Well, for some players, sure. For others, though, they just end up with a game that's built around wasting their time and bloating every activity into something that takes way longer than it should. If you want to improve this gun or this weapon, cool, you're gonna need to grind for 3 days or for a week of gameplay time to get all of the things you need to actually improve that weapon. So everything is just stretched and bloated to try and make you spend more time in the game, when in reality, it just ends up with you wasting way more of your time. Now, the way they're doing this in AC Red is interesting. They're told that this is done via a modern day story. To start, Infinity will launch on the same day as AC Red and will contain several features that you would expect from a live service. What features are those? Things like battle passes, paid cosmetics, shops, that type of thing. The Exchange will be the item shop, offering players the opportunity to purchase daily and weekly in-game cosmetics for Red's two protagonists, Naoe, maybe, and Yasuke. I'm American, what did you expect? In addition to the Exchange, Infinity also has a synchronization feature that allows the player to access projects for each protagonist. Ooh, what are projects? This sounds promising. Just wait. To explain them in their simplest form, projects are mini battle passes with a narrative behind them, offering players the ability to earn cosmetic rewards. Projects will be added throughout Infinity constantly, focusing mainly on DLC and new game releases, or even as a means of sustaining player interest during a lack of any new content. Again, just a battle pass, basically. Now, maybe this is a hot take in 2024, but I don't think of battle passes as belonging in like single player games. But here's the tricky thing, is some of Assassin's Creed's upcoming games are going to be single player narrative games or open world adventure games and smaller, more stealth focused games like Mirage. And then there's also going to be a lot of multiplayer games, a lot of games that focus on your traditional live service components where it's just about repeated matches, or maybe it's like an extraction-based game or a co-op assassination game, whatever it may end up looking like. So it's going to be a little bit all over the place as to how they monetize this, because in some of those formats, a battle pass makes sense. Like, okay, you grind experience by completing all of these matches and then you gain new cosmetics. Okay, easy peasy. That's what Helldivers is doing. That's what a lot of games do. Checks out. But then on the other side of it, you have a game like Assassin's Creed Red, which by all accounts is going to be a game set in Japan that's sort of in the same family as Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And then you're just wondering how a battle pass works for that game. Is it just go fight waves and waves of enemies and you'll grind XP that way? Is it you get a new cosmetic for every 15 bases you clear? I mean, it has the potential to really exacerbate the things that players hate about open world design from Ubisoft, which is that they lean in too heavily on repetitive checklisted content because they're trying to bloat those gameplay hours to keep you engaged with the game for longer and longer. And if these games are built around little battle passes of tedious activities that they want you to continue going through and checking off the list time and time again as the seasons go by, that to me is worrisome, because it almost seems like they're doubling down on all of the things that players want them to shed from their game design philosophy, which it's like, it's the opposite of what we were hoping they would be doing, which is a little frustrating. They go on, it's understood that the current strategy for Ubisoft with Infinity is to release a mainline game every 2 years with smaller experiences in between. Red is scheduled for later this year, with Invictus, a multiplayer offering, being planned for next year, 2025, and Hexe is planned in 2026. The latter title, penned as being the darkest Assassin's Creed game ever, whatever that means, will have a lead female protagonist currently named Elsa for the first time since Assassin's Creed Chronicles China back in 2015. Beyond that, they have other projects in the works, such as Project Obsidian, which is just the Black Flag remake that's probably targeting more of like a 2027, 2028 release window, because they're starting on that right after Skull and Bones, which is like now the same team that did Skull and Bones is working on that. And presumably they've only barely started. So that's a good long ways out to rebuild that game in its entirety. Nebula is a game that's based in India, the Aztec Empire, and or the Mediterranean. I've seen conflicting reports. Some groups have said that it's going to include all 3 of those locations. Others said that they're going back and forth between them. Others said that it's going to be like 3 protagonists kind of split through time periods. I don't really know, and I'm not sure if they know, so I am not going to pretend to know. Raid is another project they're working on, which is a free-to-play 4-player co-op game that's PvE. Echoes is another multiplayer title, and another Assassin's Creed remake, which are all scheduled to be released by the end of the decade. I don't know what this remake is going to be. It could be 2, it could be a remake of Unity, it could be anything. I'm not really sure, and I don't think it's been confirmed as of right now with any really reliable reporting what exactly that second remake could be. And so hopefully you see what I mean, where some of these, it makes sense to have little battle passes and stuff, like the free-to-play 4-player co-op game. Okay, that makes sense. You release that like 2027 maybe, after Hexe has released, in a year between the next big story release, so that makes sense, and maybe that has some battle pass stuff. That could totally work. You could also see them working, you know, with this Invictus project, a multiplayer offering being planned for 2025, throw in some type of battle pass system there. That makes sense. But for a game like Odyssey, or a game, you know, Hexe, which is coming from the Valhalla and of course, Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Origins team, it's really not clear how these battle passes will work unless they are just checklists of random things like decapitate 5 enemies, go and clear 15 bases, go and discover 3 waypoints. And if that's all it is, and you get cosmetics and it's just something you'll do while playing the base game, okay. But it does seem like they're trying to tie this sort of feedback gameplay, even monetization loop, because it's not clear if these projects will be charged for. I would guess they are, especially if they're being compared to mini battle passes. So maybe you pay $5 for each. I don't like that, because then you're just, again, tying monetization into tedious activities. And because they want you to engage with the monetization, they make tedious activities the name of the game. A similar thing happened with AC Odyssey, and it was really weird, because basically what happened is that if you imagine like the progression, what happened is you would expect a game with the XP and leveling to basically be linear. As you play more of the game, it's just a straight shot. Like during an hour, you go up 1 unit of experience, and you're more powerful at the end of this hour than you were at the very beginning of that hour. Pretty standard, nothing too crazy. But what happened inevitably is Ubisoft sold an XP booster. So the actual progression, if you did not buy the XP booster, was something more akin to this, where as time went on, it kind of plateaued. And the problem with that is that if you paid the $5, you would have this red experience where you're going all the time, and you're at max level and you're doing well, you can play the main story missions pretty much whenever you want, and it's not really an issue. There's not a lot of delay. But after however many dozens and dozens of hours within AC Odyssey, players who didn't pay for that XP boost, they would be caught down here, and they want to play the end game story missions, but because they didn't pay for the XP boost, they don't have enough XP to meet that level of difficulty. So they have to grind, and they have to grind side missions and side activities to get up to where they need to be able to participate in those activities. And it's just not as much fun, because what you would expect is for them to balance the game around the red line, and this is the experience you'll have if you don't pay for anything. If you're just playing the game straight, you level at that linear scale. But instead, it felt to players like they balanced the scaling and XP and leveling off of the paid experience, which is why people who paid for that XP boost had a great time, never really felt much grind, because they were always at the proper level for these story missions, denoted with these yellow X's. Whereas if you didn't pay for the XP boost, if you wanted to continue playing the main story missions, you'd have to supplement all of that by grinding out side missions. And then, you know, you might go back and dilly around, but then if you want to do the main stories, you got to grind more. And each time you grind, it's just a little annoying, as opposed to being just a flat experience. As you play more of the game, you grow more powerful. And it just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And it's why you have the hardest core Assassin's Creed Odyssey fans who paid in many cases for the XP boost. They have no idea what people are talking about when they say that the last quarter of the game is really grindy, because they didn't experience that, since the game was effectively balanced off of them having paid for the XP boost. What they should have done is balanced it around the red for the average player who's not paying extra for anything. And then if you bought the XP boost, you're more like this blue line. You're always going to be overpowered with extra XP for the missions that follow along the red line. And so if you really want to finish the game and be powerful enough to take on like the end game bosses well before the end game, you can do that, and it's your prerogative if you want to do that. But instead they chose to go the route where it makes everybody miserable, because they bloated the game to push you into paying for the XP boost, which sucks. And my fear is that a similar thing is going to happen with Assassin's Creed Infinity, where they have all of these extra monetization systems and they balance the game around that. Now, again, there is a way out of this if it is purely cosmetics and there really is no gameplay affecting microtransactions or anything like that, then I'm much, much less worried. But in the past, Ubisoft has sold XP boosts, they've sold treasure maps, they've sold currency and crafting materials in microtransactions, all of which are built in a way where you are encouraged to buy them, because getting those materials organically is just enough of a grind that it's annoying. So they try to annoy you into purchasing those. And to me, I just find that super, super frustrating. You know, I would hope that your game is just so much fun that people want to just throw money at you because they're having such a great time. But instead, sometimes it just feels like they are trying to annoy you into giving them money, which is some weird like dark side Phil level stuff. And I just don't think that's very effective. But then again, it seems to be working for Phil, so what do I know? All of this to say, the reporting around AC Infinity is interesting, because at the very least, it's something different and new. But when you ask yourself, what does this actually give players? What is the benefit to players? It's not really clear what that benefit is. The entire system seems to have been built around creating an ecosystem where you can keep players isolated within the Assassin's Creed universe and sell them more and more cosmetics and projects, mini battle passes and stuff like that. And whenever a feature or a new system in a game is put in, there should be some reason why it makes the gameplay experience, or the experience of the player more generally, superior and better. If there is no benefit to the player, why is it there? It's the same exact thing that happened with NFTs, where everybody's like, yeah, we're gonna put NFTs in our games. Okay, why? What does the player get for it? Well, they'll probably become rich. Okay, well, I don't think that that's super viable. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think you can just assume they'll become rich by it. What's the gameplay improvement? How does this make the game more fun? Because you'll be rich, and being rich is fun. Okay, we've been through that. Like, there was no benefit with NFTs, so why were they there? And of course they died because there was no reason for them to be there. And in the case of these live service hubs, it gets me worried because I can't think of a benefit to the player other than having a hub in 5-6 years when all of these games have actually released, where you'll be able to just quickly swap between the games without having to launch them separately. I personally don't feel that's a big deal. Like if I want to play AC Unity, I can just launch that from Ubisoft Connect. And then if I want to play Syndicate right after that, I can just close Unity and then launch Syndicate. And if I want to play Origins, I close Syndicate and launch Origins. Like, I just don't see it being that big of a deal that this fixes some problem. Like, in many ways, it seems like a solution in search of a problem, and that's never a good thing. But I don't know, maybe I'm just being too skitsy and I'm just too anxious about this. Maybe I'm missing something, a really cool novel feature or thing they could do with this system that they can't do right now. Let me know in the comment section below if I'm missing something. Do you think this is like a cool idea? Is this a good thing? Or do you think that this is just going to be a new system for them to find ways to potentially bloat games or worse, just monetize the ever-living crap out of them? I'm concerned it's the latter, considering all of the executives are the same as 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, but I guess time will tell. But anyway, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know what you think of this Assassin's Creed stuff in the comments, and of course, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. My stats say that over 60% of you are not subscribed. That's ridiculous. We can fix that right now. Or don't. It's not like I can tell if you're subscribed or not. Do whatever you want. I'm not your dad. Thanks for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.